Also, conversations in the chat room. I'm not in there, but I'll get there in a moment. The station is actually not supported by any organization of any kind, so it needs your donation. If you can donate, it's great. Can't donate, that's all. Just tell people about the station, it helps. Just try. The more people listen to the station, the more likely it is that somebody will donate. This game, if you're in sales, you know what I'm talking about. Today is the 19th of December 2023, and a car. 2023, no hover car, no hoverboard, no hover anything. At least not for private use. I don't know. What's going on? I mean, what? You can catch the cave on the air, on the line, and onto your smart device. You grab an app to listen anywhere, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop radio. I was channeling Max Headroom there. Archives are free. Not a good reason to donate if you can. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast, and for Dave,
it's the bungalow.
And for myself, of course, as always, the black people, and we like to pay respects to elders, past, present, and future, and not just the ones here, except for all First Nations people everywhere. A lot of wisdom there. It's left to rot, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, that good, eh?
Yeah, that good.
Bye, babe.
You know, you try. That's what you do. You try.
It's you try. You do. And that's all you can do, though. It is all.
So.
It's nothing else. It's only trying.
I'll tell you, a comment in the chat room has pasted a link which I was going to paste to you anyway, and it's a very interesting. Awesome. It's a very interesting thing that I've been watching tonight, and it was the UK Parliament debate on whether the UK should accept the terms of the WHO's proposal in their parliament, in their country, which ultimately, if you read through what those terms are, the terms and conditions of this agreement with the WHO is that they will have carte blanche. If you don't know what that means, it's full control of your country in the case of a pandemic. They will dictate to you...
Across the board?
Across really? The board. They will dictate to you what you have to do, when you have to do it, and for how long you have to do it. And then you have to do it. There is no... You're signing up to it. And there's current debate there at the moment where, and it comes at a very unique time in history, that there's questions around the thing we've just been through. I don't know I can't remember what it was, Mickey. Well, we've been through something recently, and the advice that the WHO had given during that issue, the recent one, lasted a few years. I can't remember, it was so long ago. Well, the parliamentarians have the ability to talk about it, whereas we are still restricted by community guidelines and will end up more than likely punished for talking about it, even in this slight way. So we are not providing medical advice. What the Parliament is doing is they're having a debate about whether they should adopt that charter, the new agreement from the WHO. The WHO's agreement, when you look at it at face value, yeah, it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. But the parliamentarians themselves are saying, well, you know, there was kind of a flippy-floppy thing, and during the last experience, some of their advice didn't kind of match what we were doing, and we had maybe better intel than they did. It's our country. Maybe we shouldn't. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't go down the path. But they haven't resolved their debate yet. It's still ongoing. So do look at Comet's post from 17 minutes ago, and it's the Dr. John Campbell replay, or you can watch the live one. Doesn't really matter. And it's very interesting. We've already signed up to it. It's already gone through our parliament. Woohoo! I think we're like the rifle chuckers of global politics these days.
She's eating certain monkeys.
There you go, right? So something very interesting, Meki, is the question that they raised in the debate is clearly something that's been discussed worldwide, but I'm just going to be very careful how I do say it. The parliamentarians themselves mentioned the possible use rather than restriction that was placed upon everybody to use existing medications and test them to see whether they'd be effective against the last problem we had, rather than go down the path, because they didn't have patents on them anymore and were extremely cheap, right? Rather than doing what we had to do by order of the WHO and by I'm gonna be very careful, and by the desire of some companies who had developed something brand new to treat the problem we had. So I'm not saying anything. I'm only echoing the words themselves coming from the UK parliamentarians, and that's it. So if you want to make your decision about how maybe your country might look into it, follow that debate really carefully. I'm not saying we should and shouldn't do it. I think debate is healthy. I really do think debate is healthy. But if you just lay your weapons down at the end after the debate and go, whatever, right? Yeah, cool.
It's critical. It
is
complete.
So, Meki, I did send you a link. I sent you a link to the OECD.stat. I sent you a link to that, which is the excess deaths according to the OECD. And I'm going to paste that into the chat room. And I'll go back to you in the studio. I can hear you typing, Mickey.
Let me see. I'm looking for it. There we go. There it is.
Now, in Australia alone, I'll mention this. In Australia alone, in week number 1 of this year, deaths, 2020 to 2023, it's shown there, but which is, I don't know, 34 weeks only. I don't know the week number. Forget it. So in 2023, in week 1, we had 21% above our normal death rate, and still we've dropped down in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, according to this, down to 7% or less. But up and before then, it could be the way we count them, or what's truly considered. But before then, we were, anywhere between 20, 21, 19, and down as low as 12% extra deaths, which go against the baseline quantity of deaths that we've recorded since we started our nation. So it's just some extraordinary numbers here, and these excess deaths now are in debate, which is good. That's also being discussed, but it's being ignored by the media, and I think that's one of the more important messages that is being obfuscated at the moment. No one's investigating the excess deaths. People are, like, I've seen some footage of just people falling dead on the sports field outside of the normal age of the type of injuries that they're occurring. They are falling susceptible to problems that their age would not normally be affected by. And this is in fit people. You know, baseball players, football players. I think there was a golfer. There was a whole bunch of people there that I saw a montage of. So, they're quite shocking to see the percentages. I'm not going to read them out. I put them into the chat room. So some countries are like 25%.
Yeah, the total number. Yeah, the total number, just for 2020. It's about 3 million for 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 million excess death.
Yep.
I mean, so over the period, you probably say maybe 7 or 8 million people that passed away, which stands to reason. Mortality rate was about 2 or 3%, thereabouts. So considering how many people did get sick, that's about right. But I think the deaths that are happening now in the younger people and fit people, in my opinion, I'm not the opinion I have, could be related to other factors than SARS-CoV-2. Certain protocols, I'm not going to say because I don't want this to be pulled, but I think there may be contributing factors. And I think we long COVID with us for a long time yet. I don't think this is over. And while COVID now is sort of gone a bit quiet from a news cycle perspective, it is still happening. People are still getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And the next virus, the next bacterium is just around the corner. Okay, just so we're all on the same page here. And it's going to work really well again in the future for whatever purposes. So it's a thing that we now have to live with, and it's the same kind of thing that 9/11 was. It happened. There was a lot. Initially, in the first few years, a lot of investigations, a lot of this and that. None of the official investigations ever touched any problems with it. Right? None of them, including the 9/11 Commission report. That was just a complete nonsense, waste of time. Came out, not properly. And if you're half smart, you can actually follow the background yourself. This is the same. It's no different. It's the same kind of thing, where there will be a lot of hoo-ha and a lot of questions and commissions, like we saw with Mr. Boris Johnson in England. Right? He was being questioned, and did he do the right thing? And he goes, "Yes, I did the right thing, absolutely. Of course, I'm terribly blah 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 blah," and nothing is going to come of it. It just won't. In the same way that none of responsible for any of these things will ever be touched, because recently they looked at the massive problem that America has right now with and the company that made those very specific painkillers, completely without risks, it's just harmless, non-addictive, etc., which is not proven to be a lie, and still nothing is happening to them. I forget what the name is, but that's fine. That's okay. They are okay. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. at this, look at these are all numbers, and they're just numbers. Through the OECD. It's full of numbers, and if you look at them by week, 606, 178. Okay, in Australia, and then in week 2, in Chile, 398. There's excess deaths, percentages, raw numbers, goes on and on and on, right? Clinical that way, but each number, each person has a story here, right? These are all people. So all people that are that were affected by this to further the end of the few. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. It's the parasites that benefit from this. They don't care how many of us are dying. They don't care. There's no care at all. I traveled, like I said, a bit for the last few weeks, and I saw the world. People are struggling. For the most part, people don't have time to think about any of it. Okay, I was standing in a food court in Singapore, and I was ordering, I think, some noodles. And there are two men inside the little stall. It's like one of those old type food courts. Inside the stall, and when she was taking orders, but it was hot. It was in excess of 35, 36 degrees Celsius, easily, right? Outside the stall. Inside the stall, there are gas burners with woks, massive gas burners, and they are blasting. These woks are hot, and you can see it. It's hot. These guys are sweating. But I think I have no time to think about any of this stuff. They're working hard. And I'm working for a company in an industry that doesn't care about people at all. In fact, people are the problem. people are the problem. If there weren't any people, I'm very happy, because then you automate everything. You got robots and scripts and whatever. You don't have to pay for anything. Wonderful. We are to war these things now, especially with the generative AI. We're running towards it. And we will have an excess of hundreds of millions of workers. And the only solutions, we took more than two then. The only solution that doesn't have them all die is the Great Reset. Give them a living wage. Let them live somewhere. The other alternative, of course, is we'll have a big war, big old war, or another really, really bad pandemic. Bad. With a much higher death rate. Okay? Because otherwise, I'm being serious for a second here.
That's right.
What would you do with these people, Dave? Let's say we're going with this conservative estimate of 300 million people out of work within the next few years. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a big chunk. But what do you do with those people? I mean, the problem that we had after World War I is, of course, just over, and a whole bunch of stuff had been bombed to smithereens, millions of people had been killed, but you also had millions of people returning from the war. And with the global economic crisis that also happened in the 20s, by the way, right? And you had millions of people out of work. But these people, ex-soldiers, they knew how to fight. Okay, and that's why it came to these big, I guess, revolutionary wars in Spain, in Germany, okay, and certainly in Russia, right? Even before that, World War I, in Russia, there was a massive movement. But after, after World War I in Europe, between the wars, between World War I and World War II, there were millions of soldiers that had just come back from the front. They were fighting, at home now, either for the left, the far left, or the far right, because there was no middle. Middle had failed, just like the middle has failed now. Our middle has failed. People are looking to the left and to the right. There's no middle ground. There's no, oh yeah, let's all work it out. Yeah. No. Get another one coming if you believe that's what's going to happen. But I am disappointed in us. I really am. I look at people's attitudes, individuals, and how they treat other people. Right? Whenever there's perceived power dimension to a relationship, some kind of dynamic that puts you in. It's always, most of the time, maybe 99% of the time, it's detrimental to both parties. Because we can't deal with these power dynamics. We abuse our power rather than, completely ignoring acting like human beings. Right? Just because you can put someone down, or just because you can berate someone, or just because you can criticize someone, doesn't mean. But that's not where we are. So I've got very little hope for us. And it's just being hammered home. You look at people working 10, 12, 14, 20 hours a day. And ultimately, the only thing that matters is making money. The only thing that matters is making money. That's it. That's all. There's no other thought, no other consideration but making money in our world today. There's nothing else. If you think there is, you're deluded. Okay? The only thing that matters is money. And if you're not on board, right? If you're not on the bus, you're under the bus. It's that simple. It really is that simple. About coming together, ending world hunger, world poverty, blah blah blah. It's enough of everything today. The problem is not the volume of things that we have. We have enough food. We have enough housing. We have enough. There's enough of everything. Okay? There's enough of everything. Distributing it in an equitable fashion. Okay? Which is not. There's no proper distribution. I think Descartes said, and I saw this recently, the comfort of the rich depends on the volume of the poor. So the more poor people you have, the more comfortable the rich will be. Which is pretty, right? Because the way we have distributed our wealth is so skewed, so out of whack. And we even think that it's right. We think, oh yeah, no, I work hard, so I should be entitled to more. Well, do you really think you're working 1,000 times harder or 1,000,000 times harder than someone else? Really? How do you do that? I mean, again, I look at these people that sold me the noodles. The noodles cost $5 a bowl. $5. They put all of some stuff in it, right? Whatever. Some prawns, some pork, whatever. $5. The smaller portions, you get a lot more. That's portion. They're not going to be millionaires selling bowls of noodles, and they're working hard. They're working hard. People that have the most money don't work at all. They're parasites in the true sense of the word. They do nothing, right? People that just live off their family's wealth. Someone in their past might have worked hard, or might have exploited, or might have been more ruthless than the next guy. Explain to me how the British royal family has got any claim on anything, any entitlement. Explain to me how the British royal family is entitled to any of the things they have, to the life that they live. Explain to me how that is a just thing. It's not. They're parasites, they're murderers, they're mass murderers. They're mass murderers. Okay? Mass.
Watery twats.
Millions and millions.
Distributing swords. There's no method of parliament.
Today I feel very, it feels very real. Jet lag, I don't know what it is, but the point is today I really feel it. I really feel the weight, Dave, that we can't escape under.
Yeah, so
It's too much.
it is. Look, we had Australia's worst floods up in the North Cape.
Yes.
So Cairns is cut off, Cooktown's cut off. They're flying a friend of I think the friend of the families is flying up. He's one of the military personnel. He's flying. I think he's flown up now, and he's helping out up there as a military exercise to try and not the Russian type. No, this is to help try and save people, right? Because they had 2 meters of water fall from the sky. 2 meters. So that's 2 yards of water. Isn't that just crazy? So it's beyond counting, right? So that's
they said 2,000 millimeters on the TV. 2,000 millimeters.
Yeah, 2,000 mil is 2 meters, and 2 yards is 6 feet, right?
It is,
So,
absolutely.
and it's our worst. We've had in the last 5 years, Mackie. We've had the worst fires. We had the worst floods twice in New South Wales. Now we've got the worst floods in Queensland. Not saying in history as a planet, but certainly within our inhabited history. Something weird, Mackie, that it's gone off the radar for such a long time, and that was Iceland and its volcanism. It's broken the surface in the last 12 hours. So it's now doing the Hawaii thing, or doing the Iceland thing. We have small eruptions along a large seam, and there's a lot of sulfur dioxide, hydrogen dioxide, and there's a whole bunch of gases being emitted. There's magma coming up, so it becomes lava in the atmosphere. It's what it's called, and it's now it's relieving the pressure, which is great. I'm appreciative of it didn't explode, leaving Iceland as a crater. There's some countries I might prefer that occurs to, just willingly, if I could will it, but I can't, luckily for them. So something really odd, Mackie, is that we're not seeing much news on anything but the ambulance chasing plight of the people stories. It's the plight of the people these days, and it's annoying me more and more as every day goes on. I feel like it's a cheese grater on my elbow. It's taken the skin off and it's hurting, and I've got to try and get to the bottom of it. One of my thoughts that I had to why this is the case is just like in 1984. Humanize the problems, because that keeps the level of fear up. If I gave you the same story in 2 different ways, Mickey, how would you react? If I said floods are occurring in Cairns and Cooktown, and there's efforts to evacuate the people, that's factual. But if I had reporters on the ground interviewing people crying because their house was submerged, or their pets are all gone, and that humanizing the story side of it is what they're portraying. Between the 2 stories, the second one makes me feel the same kind of things that the person feels there. Whereas the first one was just a factual thing, and I can, great, okay, thanks for the update, I'm going to get on with my business. But now if you hear the second one, you have this it's not an, I'm not going to say it's empathy, but it's you've now been connected with an experience that's going on there, and that actually affects you. It affects you mentally, and it can even, because mentally and physically are connected, mind-body connection. So you can become affected physically from that, the depressive state of the news and the way it is, and that's that 1984 thing, right? So as the media is beginning to control us more, the Great Reset looks even better. And that's why I can't help it, Mackie. I've got to keep taking it back to that, because it just seems like that is the story again and again, and here comes another wave. It's like I'm going to catch a wave, but this wave, oh, that's not going to do me in, or this next one's going to do me in, I better be careful. Oh, here's one I can ride. So it's like these stories they just keep coming. There's no point when you're waiting for a wave that all the waves are going to cease. It just doesn't happen. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get along with my business, just doing the things I need to do. But here comes wave after wave of emotional stories. That one thing upset me today, and I'm going to hand it back to you. I was in a store, just doing shopping, and in between visiting my father, who's in hospital, who's not very well at all. Just going to let everyone know. And there was a lady there who had just received a phone call, and she knew the person immediately, and they just began talking and like catching on from a prior conversation. And it was about a pro-Palestinian protest that I kind of got the impression that one of those two parties, either her or the other person on the other phone, on the other end, was organising in support of Palestine. Like the people, right? Once again, the ambulance chasing thing. I think the way that the news stories are now portraying the Palestinians has had a tremendous effect on how people see that current conflict. There's no media that is saying how poorly Hamas is managing their own place in Palestine, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one's saying that. I've been watching the trucks come in, and it's like Mad Max. There's people riding the trucks pushing the pallets off for the people. But they're marauders. The trucks are meant to be destined towards a distribution centre, and they're not making it there. I saw a dude get run over trying to climb onto the truck to get the water. It was only water. And so this, once again, the power of the media I'm going to say they're causing basically incitement, but incitement to protest, not violence. The media appears to be doing that, Mickey. It's so powerful, this plight of the people story, that now people who, were probably originally going, wow, those poor Israelis, look at those, Hamas people came across the border and killed a bunch of innocent, regular humans, not military personnel, of all ages, shot them dead, seen the videos, and it's awful. And now, as in every conflict, there's no little, like a referee on the side with a little tally board. When you've killed enough of them because they've killed this quantity of you, you just go, oh, fair enough, done, and they blow their whistle, game over, done. No one does that. So now they're talking about flooding the tunnels with ocean water. I'm going to hand it back to you, Mackie.
No. Thank you. That's a perfect segue for me. Because the ruthlessness with which this is conducted has to be understood. Israeli hostages that were killed by Israeli forces, even though they held up a flag that had Hebrew script. Okay. Now, do these things happen? Yes, they happen. Okay. But to shoot dead 3 of your own people kind of holding up, I guess, a white flag, as it were, speaks to a certain kind of mindset. Flood the, kill the rest of the hostages. Why not? This has never been about hostage rescue. All the hostages that were, they came out early. All the ones that needed to come out for whatever reason. There was the deals brokered. Who knows what happened, right? But did it come out? The ones that were just regular people, well, who cares? Who cares? Whatever. Sure. And it's been about extermination. It's I know people don't like to hear it. I get it. I understand that. But making Gaza a safe place. Well, sorry, it is, but not by having Palestinians there in Gaza after this. Not a one. Not one. Not a single Palestinian in Gaza. There will still be Palestinians, they just won't be allowed to come back in. Okay? And if they were to be allowed back in, it would be under the complete control, of Israelis. 100% complete occupation. Nothing would happen without the Israelis knowing, which was always the game. There was no. The narrative has also changed. All stepped up. I mean, the atrocities that happened to the Israeli civilians, they were stepped up. The mass rape, etc. The organized sexual violence that was reported. It's a scenario. I don't care which way you look at it, and there's no solution to this at university in the 1990s. Okay, that was my major, the Israeli. I guess peace in the middle. Like that. Whatever. I had a really great lecturer. She was fantastic. She knew all the players personally in the Middle East. She had traveled there, so she tell us what's going to study under her. And the Dr. Lien, the Piggott, if that's anyone. But even then, it was clear. This is 30 years ago. There's no solution to this conflict. There isn't. Nobody wants a solution to this conflict. It's not something that can ever be solved. They still couldn't solve it because it is too ingrained. Oh, sure, she's a professor now. My apologies, it's Professor Lien at the University of New South Wales. She used to be at Sydney. Now she's at UNS. Yeah, nuts. Completely nuts. It's and having this happen there. I mean, do the Israelis have a right to their own state? Of course they do. Do the Palestinians have a right to their own state? Of course they do. What happens to be in the same physical location? Okay, that's the problem here. And forget the history that you have in that space. And Dave, don't forget the history that went before that, even with the Babylonians and Marians and the Anunnaki and the things that they might have had there that people are interested in. Not to mention the stuff the Knights Templar might have found under the Temple Mount. But never mind any of that. Everybody has gone through there. The Crusaders, the Silk Road, okay, the Turks, the Arabs, the Persians, Armenians, okay, the Kurds. Everybody has gone through that part of the world. Everybody, every single. This between Asia, Africa, and Europe. That little tiny area there. Where everybody congregated. A completely impossible situation. And Netanyahu is doing what he thinks is right, which is bulldoze Gaza. You have to salt the earth. It's what the Romans did with Carthage. The Länder Karthago est. Pliny the Younger, Pliny the Elder. No, Cato the Elder. Sorry, I think it was Cato the Elder who always finished every speech with the Carthage must be destroyed. And eventually it was completely erased. And then it was salted, the earth. And then it was erased. Information we have about Carthage comes from the Romans. And that's what the Israelis want to achieve in Gaza. Nothing left. Have you seen, Dave? Have you seen what the ground looks like there?
Oh yes, 100%. Look, I saw it before this current conflict, and I was always commenting.
It's a field of rubble.
It is.
Yeah, it's.
And I was always commenting on how deep it was into Gaza that it was uninhabitable. You couldn't. There was no water, no electricity, there was nothing, there's no glass. Everything that could be destroyed was destroyed, but only just left some concrete shells of buildings, right? That's pretty much all there was. It looked like World War II.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And in history, and I know you know the answer to this, in history, it doesn't seem to matter where the Jews live. The neighbors don't like them, right? So if there was a solution anywhere, I don't know what that solution would be. I struggle to think about what could be done. So, you're living 3 neighbors deep around you of people that hate on you. It honestly couldn't be easy. So looking from both sides, it seems like their tactics are a little heavy-handed as retaliatory. Yeah, I don't think the Hamas is being blamed for not moving their people out of the way, but rather keeping their people in place. So it looks better in the media. I'm not trying to criticize anyone's as heavily as it might sound. I'm more concerned. I mean, that's a concern, but when you look at, Russia and Ukraine, it's almost an unwinnable war from the Ukrainian side, and it's a land grab from Russia's side. No one seems to care. You could talk about the Saudis bombing Yemen, and no one cares. The fact that we've got, media there selling their brand of news, talking about it, I think that's testament to what overall they're trying to do to us, wherever you live in the world, and that is make us part of the plight of the humanity. Oh, the humanity. Yeah, that won an award during the Zeppelin disaster. But it looks like they're just chasing, they're digging up an old broadcaster's comments and making it what they do all the time now. That really annoys me. And back to you, Mac, in your studio.
Look, again, I know I say it all the time, but I have to say it one more time here. See what they want you to see. Okay, in the mainstream media, but even in the non-mainstream media, people that post will only post what they want to post. Okay, and that's really something that's important. The only way that you can sense of it, and in fact get a good understanding, overall understanding of the world. Okay, I mentioned that. It's hard, but you have to filter your own. You have to filter your own soul. You trust what makes sense. Most of all, what makes sense. Does this make sense at all? Right? And Dave, as well, and what it is that they're not telling us, of course. What are the stories that are killed before they make it anyway, right? And does something, I think, at the end of every year, or I think, yeah, the final issue every year, the 20 or 50 or whatever, anywhere. The stories that were killed for various reasons. Okay? I mean, look, this before. Watch this movie by, I think it's Raoul Walsh, who was the director. I could be wrong, but the point is, the movie was called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it's a phenomenal movie, and in a micro, it describes how the world really works.
Jimmy did a great job.
Oh yeah, look, James, actor, and he was brave. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is also just like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Maybe back then it was safer to make these movies. Who knows, right? But the text and the subplots in these stories, not so much in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, that is the plot, but It's a Wonderful Life certainly has this massive of the parasites trying to gain the upper hand for no reason other than greed. That's it. The character that ultimately puts James Stewart's character into bankruptcy does so. He does it to gain more money. There's no other reason for his character to behave in the way he does. In real life, there's no other reason either. I mean, look at these people that make billions and billions of dollars, and we admire them. And I ask you why? Why? We admire them. And sports people too. Now with sports people I can get it because there's a certain skill involved in the sport you play, but just because you kick the ball better than anybody else, are you worth $250 million? Is that yes. Something is that something that we should, I mean, yeah, of course we should celebrate achievement. I've got no problem with that. It is the disproportionate weight we put on these things. But we don't have the same admiration for someone who operates on cancer, or Mother Teresa, who gave her life working with the most, I guess the most poorest people in Calcutta for decades. She wasn't rich, and we admire her, but we don't as much as we celebrate Messi or whatever, or Ronaldo, or these soccer players, right, or anyone else for that matter. And then these captains of industry, what have they done for you? I guarantee you they have fired thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. They've destroyed tens of lives. Whoa, why do you say that, Mikey? Because it's true. Because it's true. They are the polluters. They are the people change the world. Like I said earlier, when I started my rant, at the beginning of the show, the way that our wealth is distributed, and not just wealth, completely off kilter. If it was distributed properly, everybody would have enough. Okay, that's where we can, until people will actually act on it, we can no longer afford billionaires. We can't. As a society, we can't. We can't afford that work across borders in search for ever growing profits. I've got a wake-up call here. We're living in a finite system. That means we have got a limited number of resources available to us, and when they're gone, then they're gone. And in a finite system, it is actually not just stupid, but it's an expression of insanity. Like ever-growing profit. It's not possible. Mm-hmm. It can't be done. But nonetheless, that's what we're chasing. We're chasing. Hello? Sorry, but really, please, wake up. is insanity. This is beyond insanity. And I watch these climate conferences, and the biggest joke, the chairman of the biggest oil producing company in the world, chairing. That's a good idea. It's like, okay, the chickens are having a meeting on how, with predators and predation. So, are we losing too many chickens? Yeah. Oh my God, chickens of the world unite. And then that's a good idea. Yeah. No. Sure. Or here's a good one. All the. They try to come up with a way to prevent the next Holocaust. That's a noble cause. Let's all get together, and they get Adolf Hitler to share. That's not sharing the meeting on how to prevent the next Holocaust. And in reality, this is what happened. Henry Kissinger was meant to chair the 9/11 Commission. In reality, this is not a joke. This is a real thing that happened, and he had to step down because of the massive
backlash.
Blowback that got. So I'm sorry. I'm at the end. I don't even know what to call it. I can't, Dave, man. It's just insane. It's completely insane.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what? Yeah. Look, just to round.
Where do we go from here?
Well, I was going to say, just to round out some thoughts, and not close any, and this is rounding it out. One of the things that I've realised that that nations haven't done, and that is estimate their current sequestering of their emissions. So reports have been done all around the world on your country's net new carbon emissions, actually all emissions, including methane and other things, and the numbers look bad, but no country is saying, well, what is our current carbon sequestering totals? What does that look like against our emissions? Because they say we want to be carbon neutral, but there is nothing that says what we are currently capturing as far as carbon's concerned. Isn't that really interesting, Mackie? There is no report on that. So all of this, we have to be... Well, why would there? Because there's no money in that, right? The only person who makes the money is the person who makes the report. So it's endlessly concerning that we're chasing a dream without understanding where we are on the balance. It's like saying I'm standing on a seesaw. I don't know what you call it in the US. It's a plank of wood, and through the fulcrum is a fixed hinge, so you can tip it one way or the other. I forget what you call it. We call it a seesaw. And if you're only looking at one end without looking at the position of it, you can go, wow, that's a lot, without knowing where the counterbalance is. So, yeah, it's funny, because you know where I am, right? Up the coast, and everyone, glares at anyone who has a car that pollutes, right? It's just, the amount of smog. It's like driving in South Park, to be honest. And with 1 minute left, back to you.
That's insane. Look, I didn't want negative today, but it's just too much. Right now, it's too much. This is not right anymore. This is well beyond that I even imagined in my wildest dreams of going wrong. It's all going wrong. Please do what you can to be not like that. Don't be like that. Don't buy into it. That's all I ask of you, right? This has been Plato's Cave. us into your home for this 1 hour. We're back on Thursday and then on Sunday again with the Shiny Side Out. But